Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the government's latest PR disaster as a group of shell fishermen, mostly from Scotland as far as I can tell, travelled to London yesterday to protest at the fact that Brexit has knackered their businesses and local economies, and then, just to add insult to injury, they were fined for doing so. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, talked about fishing quite a bit, haven't we? Even recently, because, well, it was supposed to be the poster boy of Brexit, but in actual fact was the first industry to be completely buggered by it. I've been talking about how some fishermen have seen serious delays in getting their catch to markets. They've actually been asked, can you not fish as much because we can't get it to market? Some are unable to get it to market at all. So they've had to just stop completely. And as part of the interviews conducted in relation to this, there was the story of a fisherman who was asking if he can haul up his very full crab and lobster tanks now. And he was being told, no, there's no point, mate. We can't sell it. No point, no customers. And it was noted, well, there are the customers, we just can't get it to the customers. And it was noted that before Brexit, you needed a single document. Now you need 4 documents. But it's not really the number of documents that's the issue, it's the complexity and the lack of information about how to fill in the documents, which are not straightforward. There was a ridiculous situation where one fisherman had their catch held up because he'd put, in terms of where it's from, he'd put UK. Well, I can see what's wrong with that. Most people will be thinking, well, it's from the UK, what's wrong with that? The issue, of course, is that the UK is from a customs point of view, meaningless. Because Boris Johnson had this brilliant idea, which is to split the UK into 2 separate customs areas. So we have Northern Ireland, which remains in the EU's customs area, and we have Great Britain, which has its own. So what he needed to do was to put GB on it, not UK. And you can understand that, it makes sense. But it's not a natural thing to think about, is it? Where was the government campaign on providing information like that to exporters to make sure they didn't make that error? Completely absent. So anyway, a lot of fishermen not very happy. And you can understand why. There are communities entirely reliant on this. We can talk about, you've seen it in times, we saw it during Thatcher's times in the 80s. When a major economy of a town, for example, goes under, it devastates the whole town. There are communities where this fishing isn't their major source of economy, it's their only source of income. That's it. And you knacker whole economies if you knacker this right now. But some of these fishermen will have believed the lies about Brexit being great for their industry. After all, the government seemed to be prioritising it, didn't they? And if you're not someone who pays attention to politics, you're not following it all that close, you think they're always banging on about fishing. They're driving a hard bargain on fishing. Oh, they're looking after us. They're going to get a great deal for us. Some weren't that gullible, but they did at least think that the deal would smooth over a lot of the issues in trading. Still a little naive, I fear, but understandable. That one at least is understandable. So yesterday they had a little jaunt to London. They were fined for doing so. That's not the government's fault, that's the police. It's COVID rules. They weren't fined for having the temerity to protest. They were fined for travelling around during the lockdown with no good reason for doing so. They will argue they have a good reason for doing so, but in law they don't. But they wanted to make their point and they wanted to make the headlines. In response, Boris Johnson tried a few defences. His first major defence was and he's used this before, let's blame innocent members of the public for our mess. That was the response. He said that the fishermen filling in the wrong forms. What, you mean the forms you said they wouldn't have to fill in the first place? But he said they were filling in the wrong forms. Now, here's the thing. There are cases, of course, where certainly there are administrative errors. I gave the example, for example, of putting GB, not UK. That's an example. But the thing is, these customs arrangements now are incredibly complicated, devilishly complicated. They haven't been this complicated for decades. Some people filling these forms in will never have had to do so before. Even those who have won't remember. The government was supposed to be designing a wonderful system that would make the whole process run smoothly. Nice, easy, friendly user interface. Remember their technological solutions that would make it all a breeze? They didn't even get information, these people, on how to fill the forms in or what forms to use, from the government until the process was in. It's like, all right, here's the system now. Well, you've got like 3 days to learn it. What? That's it. And the other thing is, it's not all issues are down to errors on the part of the business either. It's not true to say that this is people filling in the wrong forms. Some of the forms they need to fill in don't exist yet. There's still an issue with health certificates for some fishermen. Second Johnson defence he tried is to go on about, we're going to control all of our fish in the future. It's like, okay, right. I mean, you have just agreed a deal where over 5 years we get a net gain of like 2% or something. But let's break this down into simple steps. Right now, fishermen have a bureaucratic nightmare that is making it impossible to get their fish to their customers. That's the situation. That's what these fishermen are upset about. This is why they face financial ruin, along with, as I say, entire fishing community. I mean, sometimes you've got a large town that's also a fishing community that has other industries as well. It's still going to be knackered, but it has other industries. But some of these fishing communities are just that. They're just fishing communities, and they depend on that single source of income. And the problem is that it's not that they don't have enough fish to sell. They've got plenty of fish. The problem is that selling that fish is either taking too long or costing too much in bureaucracy, or simply can't be done because not all the systems are online yet for exporting them. So if they can't sell what they can already catch, if they're being told not to catch as much, how is being told that they'll be able to catch more in 5 years' time going to help? And the other thing is, this talk of taking back control on all these quotas for British fishing waters. Now, after 2026, if whatever government forms after the next general election, because that's what it'll be, but the next government, if they want to do that, if they want to say, right, these quotas are all ours now, you're not having any, absolutely can do. No issue at all with the deal. That's fine. But if they do that, there's something else in the deal, of course. The EU will apply tariffs to compensate for the financial loss on their side. That's what will happen. So the situation is that, faced with accusations that Boris Johnson's Brexit is making it too difficult for fishermen to sell their catch, the Prime Minister defends himself by saying, oh yes, but in 5 years' time I'm going to make it even more difficult for you to sell your catch. Is that a defence? Is that really his response? And Johnson also apparently tried to suggest that demand for the fish was lower than before the pandemic. I mean, sure, yeah, I get that. The pandemic means that restaurants aren't as active, even on the continent. But the pandemic is a year old in Europe. This catastrophe happened 3 weeks ago. And the other thing is, if a drop in demand is the problem, how the hell does he imagine that this is going to be solved by increasing supply? I don't need to wait. I mean, this is coming out. In theory, I could have recorded this morning. I'm recording it the night before because, do you know what? I don't need to see how this plays out in the media tomorrow. I can guess how it's going to play out among Scottish nationalists. The bulk of the protesters were Scottish. Nationalists will focus entirely on this. They'll talk about Scottish fishermen who lost their livelihood due to a Brexit that neither they nor a majority of their countrymen and women voted for. And they went to protest and then got fined for doing so. That's how it will be reported. Is any of that untrue? No, it's not. Actually, thinking about the fines, the lorry drivers actually missed a trick here, didn't they? They should have said that they were just acting as concerned parents and presumably they'd have been let off. In fact, even commended by the government. Oh, well, live and learn. Final point, and Johnson did also say that there would be compensation for where it's not people's fault. Obvious qualifier there. There will be no serious compensation because they will determine in each case that the losses were the fault of the fishermen. I used the wrong form, you didn't tick that. You can't use that form. The form you want us to use doesn't exist. Yeah, but you should have used it. And the only fishermen I can see getting any serious compensation are likely to be those who are in constituencies either held by Conservatives or who the Conservatives expect to contest it in 2024. Because here's the thing. There will be compensation for all fishermen for losses that weren't their fault, will be in the same vein as the government saying that there would be COVID financial support for everybody who needs and deserves it. The 3 million people self-employed who haven't received a penny in support since the start, say hi. This group of people that often vote Conservative in elections are presumably also delighted to learn that they didn't deserve any help, because after all, the Chancellor said that everyone who deserves help will get it. I wonder if they'll remember that the Conservatives don't think that they deserve help in 2024, or indeed later this year for those that live in Scotland. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.